Right, we are now recording. The meeting is called to order at 7:09 PM with the WebEx recording starts. We'll be going through the agenda. One thing we will add at the end prior to adjournment is an opportunity for public comment. We have some guests in the room, and we will be giving them some time at the end to provide comments at that point. Starting out, Chairman's report. It's been 2 months since we met last. Obviously, a lot of the summer has gone on. No, the Chairman's report first. And I've got a lot of great feedback from people in the community around the summer reading program. Very, very positive. So thank you, Scott. Yeah, everybody should have a copy of the minutes. We'll go through, take a few minutes to review and let us know if there are any edits.
Do I recall check? But it was an issue with recording in July, that's why it's probably highlighted. I'll check.
And we did have some text.
Feels like that for a long time.
Peter, welcome. No, no worries. Are there any amendments to the minutes? Do a motion to approve? So, do we have a motion to approve? Second?
I'll second it.
All right,
Right.
all four?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Who approved?
Oh, Chris made the motion to approve and Jill seconded.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. And it passed. All right. Moving on to old business, just wanted to quickly, Scott, if you don't mind, just giving a quick update on the charter process. I know we've been going back and forth. I believe we're at a good point with respect to the charter as it relates to the library. So, any
So the non-financial edits that the board approved, everything's gone through. There were slight changes to the financial edits that Chris might be able to speak to as well.
I didn't see anything.
Yeah, nothing major since our last meeting. Yeah. So, I mean, for the most part, everything's reflects what we wanted changed in the charter. And I guess it's going to public vote, and then we just keep our fingers crossed from here.
Great. All right, and I'll hand it over to you again for library updates.
So Circulation was happy to report they registered more than 200 new cards in August. That's pretty much what we're averaging. every month, which is fantastic. Hotel Nantucket in the Lincoln Highway were the popular adult items. ILL, or Interlibrary Loan, a service we reintroduced over the last few months, has begun to grow. The staff has been doing outreach to the Fairfield Farmers Market and the Bigelow Senior Center, particularly doing digital instruction at the Bigelow Senior Center, helping people with their phone and their devices, which is always fantastic to see. There have been 5,296 bookings for the year of our study rooms. That seems to be the most popular new service that I've mentioned. 5,296. The last time I worked a Saturday shift, which was a few weeks ago, it was just, they were just packed all day long, which was fantastic to see.
That's great.
We did an escape room over the summer, which was organized by Stephanie, our children's librarian at the branch, and John, who works here, and a huge success. They used this space. It was Revolutionary War colonial themed, very popular. We did it on weekends. We did it while the library was closed. It was jam-packed every session that we filled up. Operations, we're happy to report there are solar charging stations, which were purchased with ARPA funds, have been installed. Actually, the report says installed here. You'll see it in our parking lot, and people do use it. And we just found out this morning that the solar charging station in front of the Fairfield Woods branch has also been installed. If you don't know what they are, it's basically a solar panel, has a battery, and you need to charge a device. You can plug it right in and sit there and hang out for a little bit and charge your device with the sun. We did have an uptick in mouse sightings here at the main library. That has decreased substantially since from a visit from pest control. But we're watching it. It really, if you notice, we're really enforcing the non-eating in the library. I know you've probably heard complaints from the public about it, but yeah, the mice were brazen. It's really the best way to explain it. They were fine if they were seen by human beings. There's no hiding. We have onboarded and trained our new part-time custodians. We added a custodian from this year's budget, and we had a custodian leave. I now know more about being a custodian in this building than I ever thought I would. So Rich and Joey were great at helping training, but we went through, the reviews are top notch for the work that they're doing. We really lucked out. I want to thank Nancy and Jan for helping with those interviews, because it's kind of a weird interview situation to interview custodians, a bunch of librarians interviewing custodians, but I think we did a really great job. What this allows for is a custodian on Saturdays, which was perfect for this Saturday. We had this room was packed for a concert that the Friends put on. There were some emergencies that popped up. Ellery was fantastic in helping with that. None of us had to show early. Ellery was here to let the band in and let them set up. So it worked out really, really well. And just a quick snapshot, there were 17,000 Wi-Fi sessions just in August. That's a 700% increase from this time last year. So we are 2,100 this time last August. And that's actually a 7% increase from July, which was 16,000. And that's about 6,000 unique Wi-Fi users a month. So it's not always the same people. It's about 6,000 people who come and use our Wi-Fi either in our study rooms, in our public spaces, or outside when we're closed. We do get those people who will park close to the building. It's not the best signal. I actually want to talk to the town about improving the signal in the parking lot. But libraries have seen that across the country, and we're definitely seeing it here. And then COVID, we took COVID off the agenda, but it's good to note it. We still continue to see or experience staff shortages due to COVID positives. So we still see a staff member or two a month that becomes COVID positive, and that's a shortage. With the staff that's already short, that's an additional shortage, which we haven't really had to cancel programs or reduce hours, but we have had to rely on part-time staff. So we may see that budget get a little eaten away quicker than it normally would. And then I'll hand it over to Jan for looking into the future.
So everything is pretty much in full swing now. We have full complement of programs going on. We've been displaced from our room for a score of tonight. So there's lots going on. We've added a book club at Woods and an evening book club here at Maine. Those have been requested for a while. One thing I want to mention is this is Emergency Preparedness Month. So we are having a program with Chief McCarthy of the fire department. He's also the emergency coordinator for the town. So there's some flyers there. If you can take them, spread them around. A little disappointed with the sign up so far, but I'm hoping we'll get a last minute surge. It's on the 27th, so we do still have some time to get the word out about that. We have voter registration day coming up. Our volunteers at both locations will be signing people up to vote. Writers programs are going on, and the Friends have lots of stuff as well. The Children's Department unfortunately lost a full-time person, but they are still working beyond capacity. It's incredible what they do. We're all getting Office 2021. I got it today, unfortunately. For today, a little bit of a challenge, but I prefer to have a day. I didn't have so much urgent work to do, but it's kind of exciting. Lots going on here.
Great. All right, pass it over to Chris for updates on space planning.
No updates.
Fantastic. Janet, anything you expected in regards to furniture or?
Yes, so we heard from the furniture people, and they will be coming, I think it's the 28th, yes, the 28th, to change the legs out on the tables and chairs that are gray, which are supposed to be black.
Yes.
So that will definitely be happening on the 28th, and then the 29th, the designer will be coming down to check everything out, make sure everything is good, and to sit down with us to talk about phase 3.
Great.
When's that, the 29th?
Yes.
All right, well, you can shoot me the time or date.
Okay.
But the time.
Yep. I think they're gonna start early in the morning on the 28th for the changeover, whether they'll finish it during the day, not sure.
Okay.
But you wanna know the 29th.
Yeah, the 29th would be.
Okay.
Yeah, you can just keep me in the loop with that as well. Just previous. Exactly. All right. Any questions on space planning or move on?
Do you have anything to report, Nancy, about the woods?
That we are gonna be meeting with the, with Deanna about the children's room. Because some went by. The children's what? The children's room.
Okay.
That, the Friends are financing some new furniture for that area, because I don't think that you allocated anything for woods at this
We
time.
dealt with this time.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. Good to know that. All right. Peter, I'll hand it off to you for any fundraising updates.
There's really none at this point. Scott and I still have to be.
Which has changed.
Excuse me?
Which has changed.
Which has changed, yes. I mean, the head of the firm has changed.
Yes.
And who is the new head?
Oh my God, now I'm gonna
Scott, you're too young.
Donna,
Donna,
Kathy Scoville is the vice president.
put me on the spot.
Well, Scott, when you remember.
When I remember, I will get back to it.
I'm the man.
I'm picturing her face and very embarrassed. I can't remember who it is.
Put them on the spot.
Old people, you forget.
I shaved, that's the problem.
There you go.
Yeah, not popular in my house.
It's air. Where's the train? It's disappeared.
Okay, well, we will,
Hopefully next month.
yeah, once we figure out who it is.
Well,
We know who it is. Director's not remembering.
I would just want to say something about fundraising. This was kind of an interesting thing that happened. It's not fundraising, but a couple came into the library last week when I happened to be downstairs, and she came over to the desk and she said, about 46 years ago, my husband picked me up in this library. So they've been,
hope you didn't have school.
they've been married. 43 years.
Yeah.
They came there and watched a movie and it started, it's a very cute story, but they wanted to commemorate it in some way, with a plaque or a chair or something. So they are looking for some opportunity to
Oh, wait,
make a
that-
donation.
Fantastic.
That's how we
Did
fun.
you, do you have a contact? Dick?
Yeah, I think she told me that.
That's a great
We could
story.
read the story.
That would be.
Yeah, no, I think we can definitely do that. So, you know, figure out where we want.
They would want something.
Yeah.
Against JoeMatchTop.com.
That's charming.
Singles night in the library. Scott's got action just hearing that.
It's gonna be great. People get pick up in the library, the discussion ensues.
Yes. Please put that in minutes.
Disgusting.
Got to check policy. See.
Yeah.
how that fits.
But to your point, Jan, I think what we do, coordinating with Peter, yourself, and essentially a space planning, how we want to do it.
Okay.
That way we can assign it, the dollars towards specific usage and figure out where the plaque can go. All right. Moving on to the financial and budget report, Scott.
So this is gonna be, it's gonna be a twofer. It's gonna be we'll do this one first. So we'll do we closed out our part of the town budget for fiscal year 2022. We underspent our budget by 7%, which is actually not good. Big underspending is, yeah. Maine saw about 5% in savings and Woods saw about 18% in savings. I still advocate for the library budget to be combined as one as opposed to having two separate budgets. Because a lot of what we spend through the Maine's budget. So we've been working with finance and the CFO on that. They've finance committee approved it and they've pulled back a little bit. So I'll continue to work with them on this. So I wouldn't judge Woods too hard on the 18%. I think some of what we've done here, is reflected in that 18%. The library saved a significant sum of money in fees and professional services. Underspending was due to a reduction to sizable in-person programming. So we did a lot of smaller programming over Zoom, but some of our bigger programming we didn't do. So that's where we spent that budget line. And then another area of savings was related to the building and equipment, due primarily to reduced hours, less toilet paper being used, less water being used, less cleaning supplies being used. But also, we purchased a lot of cleaning supplies through some of the funding that was provided through the state and federal money. So we saved there as well. I don't think the town minded at all. I'm sure that money got spent somewhere else, but that's why the library's budget was primarily underspent. We have been talking for some time. We will be implementing new procedures around spending in the future. 2020, which we looked at, we underspent by about 3%, which is really best practice. 3% is a little high, but kind of normal where a library spends. So we're putting in some new procedures, including some internal budgets for programming, letting children's know how much money they have, adults know how much money they have. And with that, we think we'll actually be spending, especially with part-timers, now that they're back and we have all these extra hours. We do believe we'll be spending below a 3% savings, as close to 100% as possible. And then the yellow, I guess that's, I don't know, is this yellow, is it?
Butter, yeah.
Butter. Perfect, buttercream. So here's our preliminary numbers for last fiscal year. These numbers are pulled, and the statistics we used are based on the state report, which is a combination of the state library, divisional library development, what they ask of us, and the IMLS. And some of us know we're shaking our heads, but that's the Institute of Museums and Libraries, believe it or not. So they combine it for an annual report. Jan puts the data together. I always like to use this data to report to the board ahead of time, and this is how we get that great infographic that we hand out to the public about how we're doing. So all of our numbers are up, both in comparing us to last year, obviously, but also a 3-year average. I think it's really important for the library to look at statistics through a 3-year average. So that way things like pandemics or economic downturns you know, we don't have these huge jumps up and down in our ups and downs in our numbers. So 43% increase over the previous year in circulation, that's great, but we can all expect that. What was really a good sign is we're 11.5% over the 3-year average. We are almost close to pre-pandemic circulation numbers. I'm really excited to see how we're going to do against other libraries. We're in the top 5 circulating libraries in the state.
Awesome.
So we really, I'm hoping that we retain that crown with this year's numbers when we do this year's state report. So some things that are interesting is we're seeing physical circulation rebound. And we're seeing a little bit of a flatlining and a little bit of a decrease, 1 or 2% in our ebook circulation. So we really are seeing people come through the door, which is awesome. And then visits, again, the library is about 178% over last year, not a surprise, and about a 9% increase over the 3-year average. So we're getting closer to those pre-pandemic numbers. And I can tell you, based on just looking at the numbers over the last quarter, we definitely have, I mean, the library is busier than we've seen in a long time. We opened at 12 as opposed to 1 on this Saturday. And we were surprised. I sent down a heat graph of how many people came in the door just that Fairfield was 28 people in the door at opening at 12. So they did a fantastic job getting the word out, but also it's awesome to see just that expansion of hours brings extra people in. Reference, this is interesting. This is something that's being seen nationally. More people are coming back to us for reference questions. So it used to be people would just Google things and they stopped calling us. We're now back to getting regular reference questions. Google is a little bit of a dumpster fire. It's really about selling product. It's not about giving answers. So people are trusting us a little bit more and coming in the door. So we saw a 100% increase over the previous year and a 16% increase over the 3-year average. So I think there's a possibility of us actually trending over pre-pandemic numbers. Wi-Fi, we don't have enough years for 3-year average or really to compare to last year, but it's good to see we had 96,000 sessions for our Wi-Fi, which is good to see with the reduced hours. Programs, a little disappointing, to be honest. 59%, the number of programs that we did was 59% increase over the previous year, and an 8% increase over the 3-year average, which looks fantastic. But then when you look at participation, while we were 41% over last year, we were only 2% over the 3-year average. So next time we report this, or when we do the quarterly statistic report, we're actually going to look at median, how many people are actually attending our program, do a little bit of a deeper dive. I'll tell you that the second and third quarters of last year, when we experienced the Omicron bump, and then we had that pre-holiday bump, people were still very hesitant to come in the building for in-person programming. We still had a considerable amount of people asking for Zoom programming to continue. I think that's changed. That changed drastically in the 4th quarter of last year. I think we saw more people in June and July, in May and June than we expected. And I think our summer reading numbers are actually going to put us over for the 1st quarter of this year. But that was really the only disappointing numbers that we saw. It wasn't that we weren't doing a lot of programs. It's just that people were still not coming in the door.
Last year was such a big building year. Yeah, it's super building. Every year is having every building.
You know, people are hesitant. People this summer, we were surprised by our summer numbers because so many people were catching up on going away. I mean, I know my family didn't do a weekend trip every weekend. My kids didn't do summer reading at our library, which I know, judge. But, you know, we were really surprised by our summer numbers. But I think some of that is once people got comfortable, that returned to normal. They were kind of going to visit grandma a little more often, you know, visit and grandpa, you know, getting out and see family. So we're going to keep an eye on these numbers, and I think it's definitely good to try it. You know, do a deep dive on how many people are attending our programs. You know, our numbers getting drawn down because we do a lot of, one of the things that we do is one-on-one computer help. So that's one program session. It's a great program, but that's one person. So you're driving down an average a little bit. So we're going to look at this now that we're looking at statistics. We're going to look at them. We're going to try to report them a little bit differently to get a better idea of how we're doing it.
I have a question for you, Scott. So we talked about these numbers, and with the state, Is this similar to the numbers that you guys provide to the state in terms of analyzing for money?
Yeah,
I mean, they look at this as well as the stuff that you guys report.
Well, these figures come from the report.
Okay.
It's
I see.
same type of
So
thing.
they, what they're looking at that too as a,
Yeah, I've started the
First one
report.
comes.
It's not due until November 1st, but, from what I've done, these numbers came from there.
it's really cool.
It's nice to see the video. That's very cool.
thanks to Jan for collecting these and
Um,
encouraging accounts to get, we think librarians would be better at recording statistics, but we're not.
Scott, as part of the deep dive program, so you can look at different, which types of programs are drawing the most.
Yeah.
The only other thing, because it's sort of related to the accounting stuff, when we're sending out are we tracking at all how many people are signing up for programs from our emails?
Ooh, we don't do that, but let me see if
We don't
that's,
see a jump after the newsletter. There's always a huge jump. And
That's how I find out.
we have wanting environment.
Yeah, it might be something interesting to look at, those that are sort of top of the fold versus bottom of the, head of the newsletter, there's some correlation there. And those that are promoted on the Instagram page.
yeah, social media, we can probably take a look whenever we do.
Yeah. Yeah, just something as we think towards, the website stuff and.
The other thing we should probably look at is Mary and I have talked about this, social media engagement, and maybe look at the time where the social media engagement spikes.
Yeah.
And then go back and see, is that actually driving registration?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
When those become popular.
Perfect. Fantastic. All right, any other questions regarding the financial / budget report? All right. We'll pass it over to Aaron. Treasurer.
Thank you. Since we last met in July, we transitioned the treasurer responsibilities to myself and Chris. We met in mid-August, went through some materials, and he has worked to transition the Vanguard accounts, which are David off accounts, added both myself and Andrew as signers, leaving himself as well. So I think that's a good idea, just send some back up there. We're still working with First County Bank on the money market plans. We went over there one day and there was backup, and we're going back to now. Yeah. But before our next meeting, hopefully, I'll be able to get this time. I think we're gonna add Andrew on that time slot.
Okay.
To be consistent. Last Friday, I was introduced to the Vanguard advisor. We had about a 45-minute intro meeting. The guy, we went through the details of the transition. I believe we moved over to Vanguard under his advisor pretty much a year ago. He took me through the accounts. I reached out to him today with a few questions, so it seems to be a good relationship there. I plan at this point to meet with him on a quarterly basis. That might be turning to twice a year, depending on how things go. Again, at least a quarterly basis. An update on the accounts. Since we last met in the beginning of July, we're probably about 3% up from where we were in the beginning of July. So we saw recovery in the month of July. We're about 6% up in those accounts. We lost half of that in August, but we're looking about 8.1 million at this point as of today, compared to about 7.9 at the end of June. On a year-to-date basis, we're down 17%, but again, compared to where we were at the end of June, down 1%, tracking against the S&P benchmark.
Great. Thank you, Aaron. I assume we have no update from the Friends, seeing as we don't know.
Since we don't, they are.
I'll just.
Jan, you have, yeah.
Say that their annual meeting is next Tuesday, the 20th, with author. That's the time when they'll transition the officers and present us with a check for our museum passes. It's a very brief business meeting before their other program, so if you can come, it would be great. It's pretty full, but there are some spaces left, and of course, you guys are always welcome. And the other big thing that they're having is the Food Truck Festival,
Yes.
October 2nd. So, y'all come.
So it is Donna Cahill
Okay.
and Kathy Scoville, like Donna or Kathy, if you're watching, I'm sorry. there, that is president and vice president.
John and Pat had a few years worked as our volunteer coordinators. They both did it together. and
Oh, great.
were Very effective. So,
Do you have anything in Mr. Greer's meeting, the Friends meeting? It's here.
Yeah.
Great. Try to attend as possible. All right. With that, we now move into new business. As many of you are aware, from a note, we received a book challenge based on one of the books that is in our circulation. Scott, do you want to give a little bit of voiceover to the memorandum packet we have here to review and inform discussion?
So there have been 6 requests for material review forms submitted for the title Let's Talk About It by Erica Moan and illustrated by Matthew Nolan. The book is in our young adult collection. The concerned citizens are Susan Cronin, Karen McCormick, Joanne Romano, Santa, Helen Daly, Laura Quick, and Dom DeFonte. 5 of the 6 patrons have not reviewed the entire work. They've only some portions. All complaints object to the sexual nature of images and content of the book. Copies of the request forms are actually in the packet as the blue page. The book is graphic novel format with illustrations, and this includes images, genitals, naked bodies, contraception, and sexual acts. The topics covered include relationships, body image, masturbation, pornography, and other related issues. The book meets several criteria stated in our policy, which is also included in the packet, including relevance, authoritativeness, and critical review. It has received 4-star reviews from Kirkus, Booklist, Publishers Weekly, and School Library Journal. You're aware of our book purchasing policy. We state that those are all the criteria that we expect, and it was selected by the New York Public Library as best book for teens in 2021. There are 65 copies of this title in libraries across Connecticut. This copy is actually only circulated once. It's on my desk right now. It's only the second circulation since March 2021. And I reached out to the Connecticut Library Association after their a roundtable that works on things of this nature. And there have been no official challenges at any of the other Connecticut libraries. I think it's about 35 to 40 libraries have this 65 copies. Removing material from the library is a serious decision with possible legal ramifications, which is the board needs to understand that. Your packet includes a brief on Sun versus City of Wichita Falls, which kind of becomes is really big. The legal case that most people have referenced, or most libraries in Connecticut have referenced when looking at book banning. There's also an article explaining the Altman resolution, which is a fascinating concept, and also your collection development policy is in there as well. A concern for any librarian is that removing any material from the collection limits the resources for parents and caregivers. The library would never interfere with the rights of parents to choose resources they see fit for their children. As our collection development policy states, the choice of materials used by young adults is the responsibility of the young adult, their parents, and their guardians. We do view removing anything from the library as possibly limiting subjects and resources and impeding its choice. The town librarian, myself, takes requests like this seriously, and I believe an ad hoc board and committee should review the material and advise on the next steps. We will also be in tandem, we will also be forming a committee of staff members to review the material and provide insight, and then I intend to work with these groups to make a final decision by our next board meeting. So if anybody wants to volunteer for the ad hoc committee, let me know.
So before we do that, is there a motion to form an ad hoc committee to review the book? So moved. Peter, second. Christina, seconds. All in favor?
I'd like to be on that committee too. Yeah, you have to have other voices on the other side, all the same people that have put this book in the
Ma'am,
library.
Ma'am, this is a library board of trustees. This is a board.
Pay your salary with our tax dollars. I'm a board member.
We take no salary. We are a
But
board
we
of
pay for the books in the
We are,
library.
I'm sorry, ma'am, we are a board of volunteers.
Tell me, ma'am, my name is Sue.
Hey, Sue, I'm trying to be polite. I'm from the
I'm
south.
not being polite to be condescending.
So we-
Stuff that you just wrote, so many of the things that you just
Sue,
said tells me that you have already decided that this book isn't going anywhere.
Sue, there is an opportunity for public comments at the end of.
We are, we're making our public comments right now.
No, you know,
It,
Mr. Chairman, we will wait till the end to make our comment when you feel it is so.
thank you. So the ad hoc committee is a committee based on, comprised of board members. The board's role is to advise the library, is to make decisions that impact the library. So will only be members of the board that are part of this. There is opportunity, both in this meeting and future meetings, for public comment. In the future, perhaps we would move it up in our meeting. But I do want to make it clear that this is a board matter and will be conducted by the board with public comment as advisement and librarian and library staff members providing advisement, but it is a board decision ultimately. So we have voted and approved an ad hoc committee. At this point, who would like to volunteer for that committee? Peter, Jill?
How many people do you need?
Yeah.
We'll need at least 3.
Okay.
All right, so Peter, Jill, and Christina. I would like to form an ad hoc. I would like you to meet prior to the next meeting. Meet with that advisory group from the staff to understand the concerns, to review completely the concerns of the public, understand why this challenge is being requested, why the review is, there's validity to everyone's opinions within this, and I want to make sure that there is no preconceived notion as to what our action should be. Please take full advisement of both staff, the materials included in here, as well as the materials themselves. Peter?
Andy, I think that, I think it has to be said that the public, we have to thank you for coming, stating your concerns in writing. We appreciate that.
Yes.
This is not an easy.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, I was cut off.
Andrew? Andrew?
Hello, I was cut off.
Andrew?
I was cut off.
I'm calling in also. I'm at the meeting.
What happened?
What happened?
Andrew?
Yes.
Okay, it's Lori. I lost connection for a few minutes.
For a few minutes.
Oh, okay, we had discussion around the ad hoc committee.
Oh, okay.
It will be Christina, Peter, and Jill. They will take
Yep, I
advisement of the, public comment, as well as, the staff committee, and will present back to us, their decision, or what they arrived at our next meeting.
Thanks.
Great. All right. Next thing to review is a program policy to address any challenges towards our programs. So I'd like everyone to just take a moment to review the program policy as laid out here, read through it, and all right then. All right, so take a moment and we'll leave time for questions if there are any, or to. Scott, is there any additional voiceover you want to provide?
No, it's already been vetted by our managers, their policy, it's already been vetted by the town, so the town's okay with the policy.
Regarding the public perspective and concern, is there a formal process we have in place right now to allow for those expressions?
Yes,
Okay.
so it's basically, it'll be a similar form to what's with the collection development.
Yep.
Policy, and we'll go, same process, same idea.
How much involvement from the town? Like the town,
It went through the select woman's office, they have the lawyer look at it. Usually Jackie says there's not an issue, the select woman's chief of staff, and that's typically what we go for. If there's an issue, usually the town attorney will call me, we'll talk it through, we kind of did that with one of our policies. Can't remember which one, but other than that, they've been relatively, because they're boilerplate.
Yep.
Avon allowed us to borrow this policy and reconfigure it for us.
There's not one because now this is.
There's not one, it's actually relatively new for libraries to do this.
Yeah.
But it's in the wake of everything that's been going on last year.
All right, there are any questions regarding the program policy? Move a motion to adopt policy. Jill? Chris, seconds. Those in favor? Any opposed?
it's a second, it's so. Like, first name.
Yeah. It passed.
I'm sorry, Andrew, can you just let me know who made the motion and who seconded?
I'm sorry, Lori, you can't see the video. Jill made the motion and Chris seconded, and it passed.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. All right, Scott, then just let us know if there's any feedback from the town attorney. Okay, fantastic. Is there anything in addition to what you shared during the financial and budget report with regards to the year-end statistics and finance?
No,
Okay, fantastic. So the other thing I wanted to bring up is a couple things with regards to our strategic objective, our strategic plan moving forward, and to begin to at least start to formalize some of this stuff and understand where we want to move with this. So one of the things we're reaching the end with regards to furniture and refreshing that as part of our space planning. So one of the things we've looked at is the possibility of a general facilities plan. I think until we finish the furniture, but I do want to make sure that it's on everyone's radar. That at some point I would like to create either somebody that can be responsible for a facilities plan, putting together something, or potentially another ad hoc committee which we can utilize to develop a recommendation for facilities improvements that the board can help fund. The other thing that we will need, this is closer in, that we'll need to start formalizing is the website refresh. So Jill, do you want to construct an ad hoc committee to address and look at RFP examples, and submit an RFP for the website? Something that's, I guess, timeframe wise, this is something that you could provide a recommendation for, an RFP for us to review in next month's meeting.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. So I started doing some research
Okay.
over the last month or two since we discussed doing this.
Yep.
I actually assessed very popular library websites through the ALA and a few other sites and groups. And then I located the actual web design teams, the
Great.
vendors that worked on those as well. I started talking with some folks I know that are in web design, and done sites and different things. So my plan was to locate like the top three, start putting a plan together.
Right.
Next steps, different phases of that step. And that would include putting together an RFP.
Yep.
And then we'd be able to get estimates. I was thinking about 3 different ones.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah, I would like to use these.
And then, talk about having updates regularly for our team.
Great.
Get it over time.
Great. Within the RFP, I would like to make sure we're all clear and on the same page as to what all, website is one thing, but mobile app. Yes. Do we want to include the mobile app? Do we want to include our social media presence? Things of that nature. I want to make sure we have that, because if we are going to do a refresh, it just makes sense to have everything be consistent.
It has to be consistent.
So, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, just making sure that we're clear on what is included within that RFP. Yeah, so I'll put that on for next month.
Yep.
To review the RFP before we send it out.
Yep.
And then we can also address potentially different firms to submit the RFP to.
Have we done, I'm assuming we've done RFPs for the library itself with various different vendors and different types of things. Can you guys send me a couple of samples? I have them for what my business does, but I want to make sure.
the town just did an RFP for web services, so
Okay.
we could probably borrow heavily from that as well.
That'd be great.
Just in terms of formatting and stuff. So.
And one thing that was brought up during this book challenge is that policies were a little harder to find. So that's something for us to think about, separating governance
Yep.
and library services, because that seems to really be the pull and push. Most people are coming to our website, check out ebooks, check out books, find out about programming, but it is important to have these policies, procedures, governance, all of it accessible and ready. It's kind of a push pull.
And transparency.
And trend.
Yes.
Absolutely, yeah, it does get, because just from the work I've been doing for school, and I can do a little flutter, basically, and for some help, so I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I think we should also think about some kind of user experience setup too. testing of that kind of thing to see what people want, what they need. I mean, I don't want to open it up to
Yeah,
months and months of research, but, you know, things that we need to have.
yeah, I think some level of, consumer aspect,
Yes,
if you will,
yes.
is definitely something we want to make. There's usability, there's UX testing that is being done as part of this.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. And then finally, with regards to new business, Scott's 1 year will be coming up in 2 months. Yeah, 2 months, November. And he and I discussed as part of the 1 year review, we'll do an assessment, both of what we think has been working, what we think has been, opportunities to help support the strategic plan moving forward, where we'd like to see focus, place, and, the two of us discussed that it is important, this is a very important step in our relationship with him as a town librarian, to make sure that he has a clear goal and understanding what our expectations are, as well as where we want to see any improvement, any changes moving forward. So as to that, you will do that in November. What I think we should do, I'll probably set up a call or two for the board, for all 6 of us, to discuss. And what I'll do is I'll pull together examples of assessments like this from other boards, share it out, and we can discuss how we want to structure it. And in the November meeting, we will conduct the assessment. But in the interim, we'll just talk as a board around what we think those goals are, what we think the assessments should be, and the areas of focus. Peter?
As all of us probably have experienced, the annual review is an opportunity not only for management to be able to assess where we are in terms of goals and objectives that have been met or not met, but it's also an opportunity for the individual who's being evaluated to come to the board and say, these are the objectives that I would like to fulfill in the next year, 2 years, whatever it may be. And this is what you, the board, need to be able to do.
Yeah.
To make my ability to succeed. I think one of the things that too often evaluations are negative as opposed to what we experience from both sides.
Yeah, I think it's a great call, and Scott, to you, is if you also put together, what you would like.
Assessment.
Not just a self-assessment, but a goal setting for yourself, for what, to give us an understanding of what you need in terms of support. And we can align on those and come out with a line set of goals for both the board as well as you, coming out of that assessment in November. Sound good for everyone? Great. All right. At this point, we do have a new agenda item, which will be which is public comment. So at this point, I will open it up to the comments to provide comments on we know the issue at hand. So if you, I don't know if you want to make comments there. Yeah, that works.
I just want to say, thank you very much. My meetings were in the McDonald's and I've lived for 7 years. I love this town, and I love the people of this town. It's a great town, great library. What I'm going to talk about, though, I'm not sure that your young lady, miss having young ladies like this in my household, should be present. Can she hear through those?
No, she can.
Great. Then we're good.
Actually, I'll,
Yeah.
we got to set that up. See, say that. Get one.
The full title, let's talk about it. The library. This book is purely pornographic and serves no purpose other than to provide early sexualization of minors. It has no meaning, quality.
Can you just move closer because the microphone is not device that you could even go right there.
This book is purely pornographic and serves no other purpose than to provide early sexualization of minors. It has no redeeming qualities, as I will demonstrate in several points below. For presentation to its teenage target audience, first of all, is against the law as per the general statutes of the state of Connecticut, chapter 939, section 5321, which is titled Risk of Injury to a Minor. This law includes impairing the morals of a minor and is punishable as a felony. A minor is described in Connecticut state law as anyone under the age of 16. However, that age may be raised to 18, in other words, anybody under 18 rather than under 16, depending on the offense and the relationship between the minor and the person's impairing the morals of the minor. If the relationship is one that involves an authority figure, the age is raised to 18. Authority figures may, by reason in this situation, no accusations intended, could include librarians because children come to you for information and see you as an authority. The pictures in this book are purely pornographic, as are many of the written descriptions of certain sexual activity. They are purely intended to provide sexual stimulation, and as is any other pornographic material. While the ages of the cartoon characters are not always clear, it must be noted that depictions are of minors, which is at least implied in this book. The Connecticut general statutes might be invoked regarding possession of child pornography. This book also encourages the viewing of other pornographic material, so stating that it's okay as long as it's not done in excess, whatever that means. And this is being directed at children. Children should not be viewing pornography in any amount for any reason. This book focuses on sexual activity that is devoid of emotional intimacy and encourages same-sex contact, which is not acceptable in any of the three Abrahamic religions. While two of these religions embrace those of all sexual orientations, they do not directly address sexual issues, with some exceptions. Some denominations within the Abrahamic religions do address it directly, and they are totally against it. The third religion absolutely forbids non-heterosexual relationships. And about 90% at least of people in this community have the history in their family of one of the three Abrahamic religions, whether they are actually practicing or not. This book separates the reader from the family, the child from the family. Parents are the ultimate authority regarding how their children are raised and what the family beliefs may be. Communication between parent and child are essential to the production of a healthy, happy, and emotionally stable adult, and also a strong society. A minor needing sexual information should be seeking it from parents who will provide it based on their own family frameworks, including religion and culture, or from qualified individuals. Erica Moen is a cartoonist. She's not qualified to be presenting anything to our minor children regarding sex or anything else. Teaching minors about sex should never be done in a cartoon format, which denigrates the meaning of sex and has its only outcome as period, whatever makes you feel good interest. This book is no different from any other pornographic material, except that it masquerades as real information that socializes minors to think that anything they want to do is okay. All of the above concerns are supported by science. Brain development and judgment are incomplete until an individual is approximately 24 years of age, perhaps later for some. Dr. James Schroeder, a pediatric psychologist, has studied this issue and found that youth having early exposure to porn report that it has negatively impacted their lives. The Harvard International Review states that sexualization, as defined by the American Psychological Association, is the inappropriate imposition of sexuality, including viewing of porn, through objectification, overvaluing, or emphasizing appearance and or sexual behavior, regardless of the presence of physical sexual assault. Dr. Linda Papadopoulos, a renowned UK psychologist, states that children are not emotionally, cognitively, or developmentally ready to view this type of material, and it has been shown that children experiencing early sexualization, disengaged from their families, have emotional disorder, and may exhibit inappropriate sexual behaviors toward others by imitation. Children learn by imitation. It needs to be noted that the citizens of the town expect that all elected and appointed officials conduct themselves in the best interest of all members of the community. Those members include our minor children. Any reliance on outside services to review and evaluate books for purchase does not exempt those in charge of the library system from responsibility for their choices and appropriate use of taxpayer dollars. I just want you to take a really good look at this, and please When you look at it, think of the children in your family and extended family, would you be dropping this book in front of them and telling them to read this because you're not comfortable talking about sex? Because this isn't going to teach them anything.
Could you give me that penal code one more time, just because I have.
Yes, yes. Chapter 939, section 5321. And it's risk of injury of a minor, and then it goes on and it talks about child training.
Thank you.
Yep. Yes,
Mr. McDonald, I know that the paper that you just read from, with the information therein, is not part of our packet.
no, I didn't send that in.
Would it be possible for us to have a copy of the paper?
You know, I don't know how to put it, you know, scan it.
And I'll make sure
I was
that.
actually just about to ask. There's a lot of information.
Send it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have an email into?
Yes, I put it on the sign-up sheet. And again, thank you for taking a look at this. I expected no one here would drop this stuff. I was sick to my stomach when I saw it, and so was my husband when he looked at some of the photographs that had been sent.
Can I ask a question? How did you find them?
I found the both groups too. And then the screenshots and the descriptions are like a porno film. That's all. And the pictures are outrageous. They're not teaching anybody anything about sex and sexual intimacy and the emotional connections between sex. This is a how-to manual to do X, Y, and Z without anything else. And if a child needs guidance and they can't get it from their parents, I'm sorry, but they might not be able to get financial advice from their parents either on how to manage their allowance. This is serious stuff. It's about family life, family values, values to the community and children. If you want, you know, like you are what you eat, as you can see here, you are what you read. If you read garbage, that's what you're going to be. You're going to internalize this garbage, especially kids. I mean, it's awful. Have you seen it? You should see it.
No,
Wait till you see it. And,
We will.
yeah,
Man, Lori, do we need, this is, well, Christina, you know this is Christina. Do we need the, guests' names for the
Yes.
minutes?
Yeah, we collected. Yeah.
I appreciate your time today.
I'm Lori Quick. I just want to say, I saw the court pages. Well, I took this trip down to the Westport Library today and looked at the whole book. And I don't understand how anybody in this room, I guess trustees are responsible for the books I read on the town website. Not sure how book selection's handled in this library, I have no clue. But it's shocking to think that no one in this library looked at that book before they put it on the shelf. I don't care what these Gold Star review people say. It's making a sensible decision. Is my librarian going to take this book out for this child who's 14, 15, 16, 17 and look at this book with this child? You want to know what's in this book? They have some valid things that they discuss with today, what's going on with our children in today's world, but woven in is sexual arousal techniques, masturbation techniques, using certain aids to achieve that, friends with benefits, and how that's appropriate. Do you want to teach 14, 15, and 16-year-olds these kind of sexual values? I didn't have that growing up, and I kind of figured that stuff out when I got older, and it was appropriate. It's, you know, this book has more ramifications staying in this library than keeping it out of the library. It's concerning that we're just throwing this stuff on shelves and we don't know what's there. I mean, I always found this book was here, and that's what's my intention. We have 60,000 residents in this town. Who knows that this book is sitting on the shelf? It's terrible. You know, it's teaching after sex care in this book. That's a topic. Really? You want your 14-year-old? I have children, they're in college. My daughter saw just the 4 pages, didn't think it was appropriate. She's 19. They showed a 69 position that's not a full 69 position. I don't know what we called it back in our day. Do you want I mean, really? Is that appropriate? I don't want to hear about legal ramifications. There's more with that book on that shelf. Like, you joining the bandwagon here because there's a Gold Star reviewers in the New York Times, whatever you mentioned. It's just unacceptable. Let's like use some sense. Like, where are we taking our kids? It's terrible.
What's your name, please?
Lori Quick.
And you said, you know.
I did, and I said, I did not read the whole thing, but I said, wait a minute, if I'm going to a meeting, I better go take a look at that book.
Did you raise your concerns in Westport as well? Just curious.
No, I'm here in Fairfield. It's really unfortunate that we even have to stand here for people who are doing their job. I mean, that's a sensitive issue here. Do you discuss this with a mental health professional, a sex therapist, someone who's experienced adolescence before you put that kind of book on the shelf? You don't know the background of these kids. You don't know if they've been raped as children, have no idea what kind of trauma they might be experiencing. You just assume they're normal, healthy kids from happy, healthy families, but that's not the reality here. And this book is not going to help educate a child who has a lot of issues in, sex education. There is no way. I mean, you guys need to go look at this whole book and tell me that you show this to your grandchild. I mean, come on. I mean, it's sense, common sense. I don't care what the world says, if this is an acceptable book and it's great reviews, forget it. I'm not jumping on that bandwagon.
One other comment, if there are other books in this collection regarding sex, and I'm not talking about when your body is changing and that kind of thing in a more clinical biological sense, and where to go for information and whatever, and how to pursue that. I'm talking about sex manuals for kids. If there's anything in the collection around where this book is kept, those need to be looked at as well. I did not explore that to see what else you have, but I looked at Kirkus online. Don't advocate your judgment as a reasonable member of the community who has the community at heart. Don't advocate your responsibility to them because they're in it to sell books. Whole other agenda there. So, just bear that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Like to thank.
I feel like, guys, they did a very good job of covering everything, really. I'm not the one that discovered this book. It was actually someone else who brought it to my attention, and I'm connected with several people in the community. We're all moms, I think, except one. A lot of them couldn't make it here tonight because there's an RTM meeting, and a lot of them are elected officials or elected RTM members, and they're at that meeting. But they're all aware, and everyone is outraged by this book. I think the most outrageous thing to me is the fact that it's been sitting on our shelves and nobody even knew it. And it's an insidious thing to me that that book has been slipped into these shelves in a room for our kids. I mean, teens are kids. I know, Scott, you said these are young adults. These are not young adults. We have all raised kids. My son is a young man now. He's 21. He grew up in Fairfield. He went through the school system. I raised him in this beautiful children's library. He's 21 years old. He's Air Force ROTC. He has his pilot slot. He's going into the Air Force as an officer and a pilot in May. And my son was never shown a book like that. And I'm telling you guys, it's been sitting there and who knows who's gotten their hands on it. But for me, speaking as a mom and a Fairfield citizen, I lived in this town for almost 30 years. And I paid taxes and I'm a homeowner. I paid thousands of dollars of taxes. My taxes support this library. And I say I absolutely need to say is pornography, children being in our shelves. And like I think it was Lori said, it's, when I talked to Jen, who was the teen librarian, I said, how did you decide to buy this book purchase with my tax dollars to put out in front of these kids? And she said, well, I went by the reviews because it was Gold Star reviewed. And I said, you didn't look at the content? And she said, no, I didn't. I said, so please go and look at the book, because she was at Fairfield Woods. Please go and look at the book the next day, call me and let me know what you think. And she called me and she said, I find them to be perfectly, like you said, Scott, I find it to be in keeping with our collection, perfectly appropriate. All of these other buzzwords, I was like, you find this to be appropriate? And then I also said to you on the phone the other day, we're not asking to ban books. We totally believe in the First Amendment. This is a free country. We believe in everyone having the right to raise their children the way they see fit. We're just saying, if you want to give a book like that to a minor child of yours, buy the book and give it to your child and have that in your library. That's the way we want to parent. But we don't want our taxpayer dollars purchasing a book like this and putting it here for our kids to see. It's not right. It's pornography, big time. When you look at it, you're going to be stunned. If you're not stunned, then maybe you're just desensitized by now. There's still so much coming at us. But please look at it. And if you think it's great, and you want your children to see it, then please go buy it on Amazon. But don't take my money, my tax dollars, from being a longtime citizen here and pay for that. Unacceptable. And I'm guessing, Scott, one of the reasons why this book, you quoted a statistic, that this book is found in what, like 30 plus?
65,
How many?
65.
65.
65 copies.
Just because it's in 65 libraries across this state doesn't mean that it's good for our kids. It just means that everyone else is like snuck it on the shelves like Fairfield did, and people aren't aware. I just found out about this book on Thursday. We would have 50 people in this room if we had known sooner. And you're going to be hearing from all of us as time goes on, unless if we can get this resolved, and hopefully we can get it resolved. We want it out of the library. That's not belong here for 14-year-olds. 14-year-olds are not young adults. 18 and up are young adults.
Yeah, they mature at different rates, 14-year-old.
And it's very, very offensive. This is not, and I said this to you also, Scott, on the phone. Just about, parenting. We don't want to tell people how to parent their kids. Just don't have it in a public forum, please. We're not for book banning. This book does not belong in a public forum. And if the New York Times thinks it's great, well, I have a lot of differences with the New York Times. They think a lot of things are great that I think are really, really hurtful to our society. So please don't quote the New York Times and think we're going to find that a credible resource. And I'd like to know who this Gold Star reviewer is that thought this was a great book for children. And believe me, we're going to find out who this person is, and we're going to do some research. And if you want, we'll report back to you on that.
There were,
Yeah. Excuse me?
And we appreciate the fact that you attended the meeting tonight. You're raising concerns we've raised. People taking time to write things down tells us that you're being serious. We need to sit down and go through it.
Yes.
Have a process to be able to respond back. And that hopefully next month we can continue this dialogue, see if there can be a resolution.
It's going to take you a month.
Well, it's the cadence in our meetings.
We meet, well, the subcommittee will meet before then,
Okay.
and the full trustees. So we have to-
And so all of our meetings are public.
And it's a public-
So anytime the trustees meet, the public is there and there can be public comment. Yeah, we're public because they're a public body. So, and we will let everybody be aware that those meetings are happening.
If you have any questions or you want to talk to us, Scott has our contact information. We're always available.
I think those 11.
All our information is out there.
I mean, just go read the book. I mean,
I hope you're sitting down when the book is.
And I have plenty of.
That's what it's about.
Right now.
I'm serious, nobody around you in the quiet room, and maybe a glass of water next to you, because you'll be without a friend.
It's offensive and inappropriate for children.
Yeah.
And this is the final thing I want to say. This is what I said to Scott as well. I have been going to this library, like I said, for almost 30 years, and I've never complained about anything. I've never asked anybody to look at a book or to say, please take this out of here. Never, ever. I've never complained at all. I've always loved this library. Like I said, I raised my son here. So please don't think that this is, like you said, this is a serious issue. We're not being flippant. We're not, we took one look at this and everybody's reaction is, oh my God, this is a teen library? So please keep that in mind, that we're not like, you've never seen us before, or you've never met us, because we don't complain. We've never complained about anything.
They have like naked images of transgenders.
Yes, they do. Gay says everything. It's really,
Graphic.
it's really graphic.
Thank you. We've heard, I mean, you've written your comments, you've said the things, so I think it's probably time for the ad hoc committee. So
Yeah.
we're taking you seriously. We've heard your concerns. You've written them here, you've given them, you've spoken up and you've given them to Scott. So we're listening to you. So,
Real quick, I believe, was there a comment on the phone?
Yes, I had a comment as well.
thank you.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. My name is Wanda Brewer. I've been a resident of this town for many years. I was a public school staff member as a speech and language pathologist for over 42 years in the public schools. I want to know specifically what kind of, this authority, this Gold Star authority, and all these other people who are choosing this book, what their credentials are. Have they studied child psychology and child development? That is key, because there are many studies regarding porn and how it changes the adolescent brain and what happens to children when they're exposed to it at a very early age. Look, if somebody is 18, they're adults. They could do this. And if a parent wants to expose their child to this, that's up to them. But in that case, they need to sign off on this book if it's still in the library. And they need to say, yes, I want to give my child this book and go over it with them. All right. Otherwise, you are opening yourself up to lawsuits, which we don't need as taxpayers. And that's it. I really think it trivializes connections with people and relationships. And it just is not acceptable to me as well. And I take that because I've worked with kids up through middle school and high school. So please take my advice and really look at this very hard. This is not something that you want to mess with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wanda.
You're welcome.
And thank you to everyone for public comment. We do appreciate your involvement, your engagement. Once again, to the ad hoc committee, I would urge you taking all these comments very seriously and under advisement. You guys review the book, review everything. Peter, you have a question, comment?
I want to make a recommendation that I think that we should go into executive session. As trustees right now, for a couple of months. Discuss next steps.
Okay. So at that stage, with public comment closed, we have a motion for adjournment
Go into executive.
and to go into executive session. Jill, motion. Aaron, second. All in favor?
Staff present or not present? Staff
I
present.
would say no.
Before you guys go into executive session, can I just have the title of the book? I didn't get it.
It's called Let's Talk About It, Erica Moen,
M-O-E-N.
M-O-E-N.
Okay, thanks.
You have a good night.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned at 8:28 PM.